Hi there, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this next panel session in the Future of Meetings conference. At this panel session, I'm glad that I've got some other participants with me. So I have Allan Ryan. Allan. I have Elle Geraghty. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, you nailed it. Nice work, Jen. Hi.
Melissa Hartmann.
Hi, everyone.
And Nick Mortimer.
Hi.
And we're going to be discussing how that we can effectively communicate and collaborate virtually. So I have feelings and views on how we can do this, and all of the participants here have provided a short video introduction, which is available in the exhibition hall. I'm going to start by giving a little bit of bio by myself, like a little 30-second snippet, and then I'm going to go around and ask everyone else to do the same, just so that you get a bit of a feel for the participants. We'll be discussing this topic for about 30 minutes, and there's an opportunity to provide some questions through the chat function. So if you are watching live and you've got some questions, please put them up there, and we'll certainly anticipate that we can answer those during the session as we go along. So my name is Jenni Harrison. As I said, I'm the Director of Strategic Projects and Engagement at the POSI Supercomputing Centre, which is one of only 2 Tier 1 national research computation and data facilities across the country. And a main part of my role is to collaborate. So I have very strong views on collaboration. And if you want to know all about that, you can check out my little 10-minute video in the exhibition hall. I'm going to hand right over in my screen over to Allan.
Yes. Hi there. Thank you, Jenni. I'm Allan Ryan. I'm the Executive Director and founder of the Hargraves Institute. We were established at the Australian Graduate School of Management in 2006. We focus on thriving teams through better collaboration and innovation. And right now, on my video, you'll see that some people are thriving and some people are not.
Excellent. Thank you, Allan. Over to Elle.
Hello. So I'm a consultant slash teacher slash coach. I started my life as a journo at the ABC, and then I wanted to earn some money. So I went and became a project manager. That was a bit dry. So I thought, oh, how can I mush these two things together? And so there was this vibe of, it's really a vibe. It's not actually a real title, not a real role, but it's called content strategy. And that was this beautiful mush between the narrative and the journalistic background and the milestone and the C-suite and the money focus of project management. So I've come to this lovely space, and I work with big organizations and government, helping them improve their communication online. I really specialize on websites, and I love it. I love working with many, many different organizations and thinking, how can you communicate better?
Excellent. Thank you for that. Melissa.
So I work in helping organisations to create their futures, and how we work together in those organisations is a huge part of that. In the last few years, I've been focusing on building Agile teams in particular in some different organisations. But key focus for me is how do we create the future that we want to be a part of.
Okay, thanks. Lucky last, in fact, Nick.
Hi there, Nick Mortimer here. I'm a senior engineer at CSIRO. I've been working at CSIRO for nearly 20 years. And over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been completely reinvented my practice. And it's kind of interesting that this whole COVID thing has really it's accelerated my journey from a solo programmer to community member. And it's been a fantastic journey, you know. And my talk's about performance art. And I think being able to show your work as you're working to other people is like performing, and it's real. You know, people see your struggle, and we often hide that struggle from people. And I think there's going to be a lot of more for us to collaborate more efficiently and deeply. I think being able to show our true selves as we work will be a key part to that. So yes, the pain is real, the frustration is real, and when we're programming, how do we share that? It's an interesting one.
Thanks for that, Nick. And quite a good segue, because I was going to open the questions with what do you think are the most important things in terms of providing collaboration? And I think you highlighted there, Nick, that you want to show your authentic self. Is that right? Yeah.
I think, I mean, there are parts of myself that I probably wouldn't show to my work colleagues, but I think being true and actually showing your strengths and weaknesses and working with that is a whole new ball game, in that we try and paper over paper over our weaknesses and hide them. I think in a collaborative world where you're not expected to do every part of the job, then understanding where some of these weaknesses are and their positives are, and allowing people to help them is a whole new, well, it's certainly a new thing for me. Yeah.
Okay, what about everybody else? What do you think are the most important things about collaboration in this virtual world?
One of the really critical things that's coming through is expectation setting. So I think for a lot of us, we just made assumptions about how other people like to work and what it meant if they were working in a different way. And one of the key things that I'm seeing coming out of this is people being really explicit about the ways that work for them, and even building out sort of a ways of working charter and sharing that with their team and saying, you'll see me online at this sort of a time. I'm doing that because I've put the kids to bed, or I like to go for a walk when it's still light, so I head off at this time. I prefer text, I don't like text. And all these sorts of things that if we had been working effectively before, it would have been helpful to have done these things. But now this time that we live in has given us the opportunity to really be explicit about the expectations we have of both ourselves and others. And I think that can be really helpful.
Yeah, I've just put into the chat that the working charter, I think that's a great idea. I haven't actually come across that one, and I think it would be really helpful, and particularly in some of the discussions that I've been having in the last couple of months.
A lot of the tech companies are encouraging people to do that. So, you know, on your wiki or your intranet, you'll have, hi, I'm Elle, and this is the way that I like to work. But I think, and Mel kind of touched on this, but I think a really important thing would be to kind of flip these ideas and think, not only are you communicating well about what you need and how you work, but are you, and sharing your weaknesses or your, maybe not your weaknesses, but the gaps in your knowledge, or, you know, whatever, however you want to describe it, but thinking about other people and thinking about what opportunities, or what are they looking for, or you know, what concerns might they have, or how do they like to communicate, how do they operate as a person. And I think that empathy, and if we're doing some deep reflection and thinking about how we like to communicate, we should also be really charging our empathy muscles and thinking about how do our team members want to communicate. And you know, all the Myers-Briggs kind of tools, I think you can take or leave them, but what I like about them is you thinking, well, how do I think? And really importantly, how does someone else think, and how might we mesh together? Yeah.
There was an interesting session yesterday about inclusivity, and it was about particularly with people who have disabilities and how that we can actually have online experiences that actually support them with their needs. But for me anyway, one of the most interesting things about that was they were really, really informative, really, really helpful, those sessions. But for me, one of the things that really hit home with me was everything they were saying, I thought had direct parallels with for everybody. You know, the things that they were saying about trying to do things to make people feel welcome and part of the group and all that kind of stuff. They apply to everyone. It wasn't a, you know, so it was kind of interesting how
I worked at guide dogs for many years, and honestly, that's a core tenet of accessibility. We think we're working, it's like, we'll put a ramp in for someone who's got a mobility issue, but the parent with the pram loves the ramp as well. That's you couldn't be more right, Jen.
Yeah, exactly.
You couldn't be more right.
Feels generally. Alan, over to you.
I think we've also got what makes collaboration work is we've got to maximise the diversity. And so saying how I work doesn't mean everyone has to work the same way I work. And I think the joy of remote working now is that we can all work our own way, and we can literally have maximum diversity and maximum input, because there's no point having collaborative teams if everyone thinks the same way. And I think that's the joy. We've got to maximise diversity and not try to make everybody the same. And I think that's really, really important.
Couldn't agree more. I think the challenge is then if you're a manager or a leader in a team with true diversity, that is incredibly challenging. And if you're thinking about diversity of thought or process or approach to work, so and you can imagine immediately examples that come to mind. You think, I love to get up early and plan my day, and my colleague is finds that really oppressive. They want to be spontaneous. They want to respond to challenges as they come up. Imagine you're the manager or the leader of those two people who are ostensibly giving each other the shits because they work so differently. So it's like the implication to that diversity, which yes, we all know is so important, is that it's hard to manage it. So that's another thing for us to think about.
So in terms of, this is all very positive, but what are the main challenges that you've encountered so far? I guess most people have been working, well, I guess some people have been working before from home virtually, etc. But it's kind of really hit home at the time of the COVID pandemic and obviously the lockdowns, etc. So what are some of the key challenges that you have encountered, I guess, along the way? Anyone want to start?
I'll start. So I worked in a big Australian tech company, and I worked where half my team was working in Austin, Texas. So we had really great technology to support us in that, but it was really frustrating. It was really difficult. Austin, Texas has for half of the year 1 hour in common with Australia in terms of working hours. And so it's a really dramatic example, right? But we can think about working with our colleagues in different states in Australia, how it's just difficult if they're not in the same space. But culturally, really quite different between Austin, Texas and Sydney, Australia. The time zone was absolutely crazy. But what we had is we had really dynamic, fabulous people with sparking off with ideas, and you had to wait a full cycle of a day before you could collaborate with your colleagues. And it was really frustrating and it was really challenging. So that the cultural differences and the temporal differences can be really challenging, and you need to work harder to get over those barriers. You need to be more organized, and it's really difficult. You can't just be like, oh, we're gonna come to an idea or come to some beautiful kind of conclusion in the hallway. That's not how it works. You've got to do a lot of pre-work. You've got to anticipate what people need. You've got to say, I'm not going to hear back from them for 24 hours. So what do I need to do to get that done? And it goes from this kind of like lackadaisical, oh yeah, she'll be right, it's all going to come together, to we've got to be more disciplined, and we've got to anticipate, think ahead, plan, put a whole bunch of procedures ahead of time so we can, still have that lovely continuity, but out of sync.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I recently took part in Ocean Hack Week, and which was in Pacific Eastern Time. So that's a 17-hour time difference to Perth. And I set the caravan up on the driveway, and I was sleeping in the caravan from 9 o'clock in the morning so the kids could go to school without waking me up. I never realized how many people had their lawns mowed at 9 o'clock in the morning. 9 o'clock in the morning. It's like, but it was great. I mean, it was a really fantastic experience. And afterwards, after we'd formed that group in Ocean Hack Week, then the negotiation on time started happening, and I've gone, the meeting started. I think I've got them to 7 o'clock in the morning now from 5. So, I think once you've formed a group who are really interested in what we're trying to achieve, then that flexibility starts to happen. Initially, it's quite inflexible, and everybody just wants to be in their own 9 to 5 time zone throughout the world. But I think as you get to know people better, then yeah, you can really align your timetable much better.
Yeah, I think that one thing we've discovered in the talk, in the video we made, was that the percentage of self-directed teams has dramatically increased. So leaders are no longer directly leading their teams; the teams are leading themselves. But teams are then learning how to do it themselves. And so how do you empower teams? By giving them the tools that they can learn themselves, because they're self-directed and they're doing everything themselves. And therefore this can become an issue if some teams are becoming disconnected. And so there's a bit of tension there between empowered, self-directed teams and disconnected teams that are not doing things quite right. And then how do you get them into giving them the tools so they can use them the way they want to use them, as compared to, you must do it this way. So we see the problem at the moment, there is still a tension going on, and there's a big difference between the high-performing teams and the poorer performing teams happening right now.
Do you think that the disconnection, that's driving the lower performance? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because you can see that the data shows that the band of performance between the high-performing teams and the poor-performing teams has increased. And so one of the big bits of data is that a lot of performances have stayed average over COVID and since before COVID and after COVID. So customer engagement and a lot of employee engagement in performance, the averages have stayed the same, but the breadth of the standard distribution has dramatically increased. Some teams are incredibly thriving at the moment and other teams are not. And I think that's the big issue.
As to why that might be? Do you have a hypothesis as to why that might be?
Oh, well, our hypothesis is that some people are just a small group of the people are struggling to learn the technology, struggling to learn how to talk to each other. And you've been on Zoom meetings and we've started to track it, where some people don't say anything, or Zoom meetings where people don't turn on their videos. And so with the old bell-shaped curve, it only takes the 5 or 10% on this end to actually bring the whole curve down. So the big focus is on how do we help the people that are struggling? Because the thriving people are thriving, going fantastic gangbusters, there's no problem, but it's giving people the tools to lift that tail. Because no one was taught how to work remotely. We weren't all pulled aside for a change management program and sat down and said, this is what you do and here it is and whatever. One day we were working, the next day we were in lockdown working from home. And I think and then there's been no sort of help along the way, and people are now very isolated. So it's how do you help them when they are independent?
Yeah,
I would say that's the most difficult thing at this point in time. The most difficult thing about working remotely is that some people have been doing it for a long time, and I know Elle's been doing that. I've been doing that as well. And Nick's just described it, and others, all of a sudden we've had this experience of being online immediately, as Allan's just talked to, whilst also going through this experience that is one of collective challenge and grief and lockdown. And I'm in Melbourne at the moment in stage 4 lockdown, and there's a lot going on behind that. And so if you add in this need to be empathetic to our teammates so that we can work together, all of a sudden that you've got people who are just exhausted, like switching all of those changes in this short period of time, that sucks a lot out of us. And so trying to then work collectively and work really well in teams has been, it's been a big curve for everybody, but has been very different depending on what your experience was prior to that and then what your experience has been during this the last 6 months.
It's such a good point, right? Because there are many of us who've been working this way for a long time, but this context and the emotional toll in the background. Yeah, it's such a good point to make. It does change everything. And if you feel like, oh, I'm not really doing a very good job at communicating remotely, maybe if you had this situation last year without the context of a global pandemic, that would have been entirely different.
Certainly here, I see there's a question here, how are business helping managers? It's really interesting in my business before, in CSRO before this, a lot of managers were continually traveling, continually not there. And it's kind of like almost the opposite. I see more of my manager now than I ever have done, because I'm not traveling, I'm not out at sea, I'm not doing field work. There's all this kind of, so the sort of formula is completely changed, but it's not changed in that predictable way, and there's lots of assumptions made that we all had these great relationships with our managers beforehand, and somehow afterwards that's been disrupted. Well, I can think my manager, she's great. She really is, and she's a good supporter of us all during this period, and she's really looked after us. So, and even with Cyro, and we had this whole thing about whether you could take your desktop home, whether you could take a monitor and all those kind of things. Those things got resolved really quickly. And now we've got we've got a package where, they're going to give us a sit-stand desk at home and a monitor and a this and a that. And, it's an amazing turnaround in an organization this big that they've suddenly realized that, we've been lobbying for sit-stand desks for like 10 years. So there's a whole heap of things that are coming together, and people are really looking at, how do we make this work? How do we make it work? And you know, how do we not go back, you know, and continue going forwards?
Do you think you can fit a sit-stand desk in a caravan, Nick?
Well,
No,
I have a
that's the only studio caravan.
I have a man cave next to the caravan that's called a shed, which is currently, I'm not actually there now, but where I usually work from. But yeah, it's a problem because you know, my house is 100 square meters. There's 4 of us living in it. There is no room for the sit-stand desk that is going to be delivered. I am working on an extension. Yeah.
I run a meetup, a content strategy meetup in Sydney, and 2 really great things have happened to that as a result of this current situation we're in. One is that we have access in a way that's so much more natural and relaxed, and everyone understands how to do it, to really high profile international talent. So I've been, you know, getting people from Sydney to come and chat to us. And now yesterday morning, we had the biggest content strategist in the world come and talk to us. And it was easy breezy because we all know how to do it. And it was this fantastic kind of conversation. And I love that. We, you know, but then in other ways, to build on what you just said, I had a participant, and I really encourage people to turn their videos on, because I really think that we need that human connection. We need the eye contact, we need the gesturing, we need to look at people's body language where possible. And I said to her, "Are you in bed right now?" And she was like, "Yeah, Elle, I am in bed because my wife is a nurse. She's been working all day. And when she gets home, we've got a 1-bedroom flat. She needs to sit in the lounge room, put her feet up, watch some telly, eat some food, and just chill and be in her own space. And so I'm now in the bedroom to give her that." So, and again, all these changes are happening, but we're working it out, right? And I guess they're kind of positive examples of it. We all know that there are people who are in less positive situations and finding working from home, for example, incredibly difficult. But I do see that there are these opportunities that are coming up for us. So another one of my friends runs IT for New South Wales legal system, and she has been battling to get, you know, these old judges to get online to, and they have to do it now. They've been resisting, saying, "Oh, we can't sentence online, we can't be sure it's actually these people, you know, there's all this continuity or you know, the trust that we cannot establish online." And now they've had to do it, and they've established precedent, so sucked in. That's how we're going to be doing it from now on. I think these things are very good. They're positive. We've developed our muscle of using these tools in a way that's super. It's going to be good for us in the future.
Okay. We've had two questions that have come in, so I'm just going to read them out. So the first one is about, which has come from Frances, and she says, "I miss the physical changes in space, and just looking at the 2D screens, 2D faces and screens is not just the same." I just wonder what your perspective would be on that, Allan.
That's really important, because the trouble with 2D screens is you can actually see people very closely as well. And we can't actually see the hidden messages between each of us, like sitting around a table. So, and I can't talk and have a quick chat to Melissa while you're talking to somebody else.
Which is a good thing, Allan. It's a good thing, because we should all be focusing on the one.
We should all be focusing, but you miss that side of it. You actually miss that side of it. And so it's good and it's bad, and you miss that side. And I love the comment, because it's about, that's important to that person. It may not be important to somebody else, or having the video on is important to you, but not important to somebody else. We haven't worked out how to juggle this, and you can't look at any research to find out what's the best way of doing it, because it all happens so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a good question. I haven't got an answer for it.
Okay, I'm just going to move to the next one, because we're almost at 22. I'm going to move on to the next question. So the next question we got was from Shelley, and she said, in your mind the benefits then outweigh the challenges of the time difference. This was relating to the time difference. So it was, I guess she was commenting on what Elle had mentioned previously about time differences in different countries, continents, etc. Does the actual benefits of collaboration, is that outweighed by those time challenges? I wonder what you might think about that, Melissa. or if you've encountered it.
In my experience, yes. I remember working from New Zealand for a time, and I was working with our Australian teams on the east coast of Australia, with some of our crew in Perth as well, where Nick's from, and then also working with our teams in Indonesia and Thailand at the same time. And for me, the opportunity is that you wouldn't have the ability to work in that way if we didn't have these tools at the moment. It brings up a whole set of challenges around boundaries, in terms of there can be an inclination to just keep working and working and working. And so that's where it comes back to being clear on expectations. I think opening us up to different people in the world that we wouldn't otherwise have access to can be really beneficial, and then work out how to bring that into what we're doing here and what we're trying to do with our teams in the work that we're working on.
Okay, and we've got another question which we've just received from Glenn, which I guess is a bit of a follow-up, and he's asking, is remote work just emphasising the best and the worst parts of our current company's working policies and approaches? What do you think about that?
I think Glenn is totally right. It's a
Totally
good question.
right.
Yeah, like honestly, I think that we make so much of a fuss around the tools and the technology. It really comes down to human communication. I think, Alan, you mentioned that you'll have a meeting where, in a Zoom meeting, where nobody where somebody doesn't speak. Well, that happens in a real-time meeting as well. I think what technology does, people say that it changes the way we communicate. I don't think it does. What it does is it makes us quicker in our ability to communicate, and it changes the scale or the ability to communicate to many really, really quickly. But fundamentally, we are still the same people who are listening, not listening, well prepared, not well prepared, equipped to contribute meaningfully to the conversation or not, skilled at making connections, skilled at talking to people and clarifying and saying, I'm not sure what you mean, can you please help me? Mm-hmm. These things are all skills, and they are just either amplified either by scale or by speed through technology. I really think that they don't change fundamentally.
Any follow-up comments, maybe?
And I think that the technology is amplifying that, because you finish one Zoom meeting at 11 o'clock and you start another Zoom meeting at 1 minute past 11. And you go out of a risk meeting and into a creative meeting. So technology is just accelerating all the bad habits. And so what we have to do as teams is say, we're not going to get sucked into it. We're actually going to change, or we're going to actually take control. Like when we have meetings, and having your own chart is a brilliant example. So we have to take control of technology because it is people-led. It's not, technology doesn't rule us anymore. People have to take back and rule technology, because technology is just a commodity now.
I love your comment there. I used to complain often. We've got two buildings where I work in Perth, and I used to complain often that it would take me 8 minutes to walk from one building to the other building. And in the rain, that was a real drama, right? We're all issued with brollies, so it was fine. So it didn't really get wet. But now, genuinely really miss it sometimes, because, like you say,
the switch.
You're somewhere else. You've switched to somewhere else, another place, another country, another, whatever. Anybody else? So, Melissa, do you have any comments on that one?
I think, in contrast to Alan's views, it was probably it's more so building. It depends on what kind of work you do as well. I think that if we are talking about people that work on projects and they work in teams together, yes, absolutely. Some of the technology has enabled us to work together in ways we couldn't before, maybe, and has just highlighted has exacerbated further question. When I think about other types of work, I think that switching to remote has made some types of work much better and sometimes much worse. Some things, and I'm particularly thinking about certain types of engagements with doctors. I'm thinking about, for example, I have young children. They can't go to maternal child health nurse conversations anymore. They can't be weighed. Some work is best done face-to-face. Whereas and I'm thinking about the team that I work with in that space, whereas other work is supercharged by the possibilities of remote working. So I don't necessarily think that it's just made things better or worse. I think for some professions it's made it much better, and for others there are real gaps in what we're able to deliver in a remote way.
Okay. I'm going to hand over to Nick for the last 1 minute
I
left.
guess,
I'm going to hand over to Nick.
okay, quick synopsis. My working life, I mean, I've spent the most intensive work. I spent 15 months with 22 people in Antarctica working completely by ourselves, right? So that's one end of the experience to today. Oh, it was the closest thing to Lord of the Flies I have ever experienced. And from that to where we are now, it is just astounding. I mean, one of the dangers I do find in this new collaboration world is sometimes I find it a lot easier to collaborate with people on open source projects than I do with my actual team members here. I can find people who want to help me more outside the organization than inside the organization often. And I think that's going to be one of the big challenges in this world where people get value out of helping others is how do we control the helping? Yeah, because it's out there, and some of the groups I'm with are so helpful to me, but they're not part of the organization.
Is that a problem, Nick? Is that a problem?
Well, it's not, but I like helping them too.
Yeah,
and there's this drift away from how much of my time do I spend helping others and altruism versus how much of my time do I actually spend in the organization. And I think that's going to be a struggle for me.
So is it about the outcomes that you're trying to achieve? You feel there's a disparity between the internal outcomes and the external outcomes, or because I would have imagined there would be a bit of an alignment, right? But you're saying that they kind of separate.
Well, they do, but it's hard to keep your focus on things that you're not enjoying when there's all these.
Now there's all these things. Now we get to there's all these
collaborations and helpful people who want to help me enjoy programming and and the beauty of it. So yeah.
Okay, this has been an excellent discussion. I have really enjoyed myself today. I hope you have too. I'm going to bring this to a close before I get a red flag from Vanessa. So the key points for me, and I put some of them in the chat, are that in the chat window rather, is that a working charter is a great idea. I think it's something I'm going to certainly go back to my own organisation with. Other things about good collaboration or the flexibility of it. Be mindful of time zones, other people's time zones, etc., and people's cultures and how that relates and plays out in these virtual collaborations. Also be mindful of tools and the range of tools that we're using, and that not everyone will have the same level of familiarity that you have, so don't really go expecting that. And also to be mindful of what appears to be disconnected teams, because there might be a genuine reason why they're disconnected, and how you can, I guess, bring out the best parts of your organisation to help and support those teams. Any other points?
Yes, tools are just an adjunct, Jen. They're just an adjunct. At its foremost, we need to be human beings who are communicating with each other, thinking, what do you want to know? What are you trying to do? How can I help you align what you're doing with what I'm doing? The tools are irrelevant. The tools are our pen and paper. What matters is what we write in them.
So it's just a thanks to Shelley and Francis and Glenn who posted some questions today, and then also I'd just like to thank my other panelists. So that's Alan, we're around my screen anyway, Alan, Elle, Melissa and Nick, and also thanks to the organisers.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.